In 1970, my life was focused on a master's degree, or being a master's thesis student at the University of Maryland in College Park. I was a hippie and anti-war cartoonist for the university newspaper, a feminist challenger of the status quo who co-founded both the University of Maryland College Park and Washington, D.C. Women's Centers. I was young, so young, naive, but I set out to change the world.
Between high school and college, University of Detroit, I worked at a meat packing company, and and my supervisor was a Korean war vet. He was quite old. He was probably about 40. His name was Eric Kaczynski, a name you just cannot forget. He stopped me smoking. That's one thing he did for me. Stopped me from smoking. Lucky strike. Told me I should be smoking Pall Mall because they last longer. I did that for quite a while, by the way. But the big change was at 17, apparently I had a terrible potty mouth. And he took me outside and he asked me, he said he's going to cure me of that. And he took me outside to a plant and he asked me to describe everything I saw and everybody I saw. And I ripple fired everything I saw and everybody I saw. And then he took me back inside, we went to the cooler, and he repeated what he heard. And it was shameful. I just had no idea. Somebody else's observation of what I'm saying. And it paid back, and I was dumbfounded. And it influenced me, he also influenced me to join the Army. In October of '56, my first year of college, he loaned me his Army uniform for a Halloween party. He was an E7 in Korean War, so that's the old Ike uniform, the short-waisted uniform, the terrible heavy wool pants, brown shoes. And he was a sergeant first class in E7. Now, while wearing that uniform, I stopped to get some gas. And as I went to pay for it, some stranger just came up and says, "Here, soldier, let me get that." That was a wake-up call.
I did a tour in Seoul, Korea at Yongsan Army Base, 94 to 95. It was a really interesting time for me in many ways. This was the first time I'd actually been overseas, and my job required that I have a top secret security clearance, which as an E4 corporal is quite rare. There was a lot of responsibility on me at the age of 26, and I adapted quite well. Really enjoyed my time in Korea. I ended up befriending several civilians with the Australian Embassy and was blessed to do some in-country travel with them. I also had some really great friends at the Osan Air Base. Air Force always has it better, so I spent a lot of time there.
When we deployed, I was in Germany, Washington, D.C., Fort Drum, California, and Texas. Finally, Kuwait and Iraq. I think the military is the same anywhere you go, but the desert was hot and miserable and smelled like raw sewage all the time. In the summer, they said it felt like 146 degrees outside. I had a lot of guard duty, and we had to wear all our gear most of the time, and we were soaked in sweat. We had Scud missile alerts every 20 minutes. We had arrived 8 days before the Iraq War. It was different after a few months, but the first 3 months were crazy. Our commander was reckless, and he took us out when we first got there. Before the unit showed up, the Humvee in front of us blew up. All I saw was white. Someone dragged us into bunkers. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't adjust my eyes or see enough to understand where we were. I thought we'd been attacked. At that point, I realized we were not welcome, and we could not let our guard down.
The biggest highlight of my service is when I got to run a marathon in Berlin on a 3-day weekend. I was ordered by my commander, who about 3 months was plenty of time for me to be ready for a marathon because I knew I was fairly athletic at the time. We were allowed to go to Berlin, but during that time I was able to go through Checkpoint Charlie in full Army uniform, dress uniform, with our ID tags visible, and visit communist East Germany and the wall. It turned out to be one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. It gave me a greater appreciation of what living in a free country was, and the many things that we take for granted on a daily basis. My first perception was, when I crossed over, it was like stepping from a color photograph, which is the most modern city of Berlin and West Germany at that time, to a black and white photograph one in East Berlin. And the quiet unease that set in when I crossed the border, it see that even the birds stopped singing. And there was also the stares of these Germans. Some would share a subtle smile, but most would give you a stoic, uneasy look about them as they glanced our way, because they were aware that the secret police were probably watching them, and any interaction with us in public would probably have consequences for them and their families.
So much of who I am comes from my military service. It created a discipline in my life that lives with me every day. It helped me to understand that what I really wanted for my life was to be a historian and a writer. After working half of my life on research and interviews, this finally led to my book, The X-15 Rocket Plane Flying the First Wings into Space. It's a very macho subject, so people often wonder why a woman would be the one to write this history of the highest and fastest research aircraft that ever flew. I believe it shows that women are just as capable as men in every aspect of life, something reaffirmed every time I traveled the country talking about my book.
But I feel that everything that happens to us happens for a reason. Despite all the unimaginable things that happened to me during my 3-year active duty and 3-year reserve duty, I was the better for it. It gave me perspective, a chance to learn how both inhumane and humane people could also respect each other. Also, how much a spirit of camaraderie existed among those of us who wore a uniform and marched side by side, no matter whether we were women or men.
You know, the United States Armed Forces houses men and women of all walks of life who have proudly served and bravely took an oath of office to defend America against all enemies. Now, these next 2 sentences you've probably heard before because they're quoted so often. A veteran signed a blank check to the United States of America in any amount, including their life. A veteran holds sacred the memory of those whose checks were cashed and wait at Fiddler's Green.
I have embraced my time in service and my role as veteran and veteran advocate. I'm a member of the American Legion Post 291. I have a love of volunteer work as stated above. I also feel civilians have been very grateful and kind whenever anyone learns that I'm a veteran. I feel honored to have served my country, and I feel I continue to be of service with my volunteer work today.
I would encourage anyone looking to travel, get free education, help buying a house or a car, help getting a job or a career, to go into the military. It doesn't have to be a bad experience. It's a lifetime membership to a great group of individuals that I am proud to be a part of.
The unique training that I received in the military has allowed me to continue to move forward until whatever mission in life I choose to complete. As a student of life, and that mission will always continue to build, and I hopefully in a life well lived, unafraid, and with joy in my heart, and as long as God allows it.
At the time I served at the end of the Vietnam era, it was not uncommon to be verbally abused by civilians over the idea of serving your country in the military. People I know were spit upon just for wearing a uniform. Today, vets are treated much differently and are almost universally applauded for our service. It is a refreshing change and long overdue.